key takeaway from the tip that I shared away is that don't underestimate the power of visuals. Like visual commerce for SEO, image SEO is no longer about just compressing files, writing alt text. It's about using AI and automation to deliver scalable, context-rich visuals that improve both the rankings and the conversion. For businesses, this means, you no longer need like studio budgets to compete with big players. You can build real-time, testable, automated visual systems that drive growth. That's my key takeaway from Tim. I'm Desmond Boateng, and this is SEO in 2026.
Desmond, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
So my number one SEO tip for 2026 is using visual commerce. So using contextual images for e-commerce, but also for all the different businesses that are working with products. Instead of using plain product photos, you're using contextual photos, for example, with different settings based with AI.
Okay, so we're just talking about images here. We're not talking about video at all, just images.
Yes, just images in each end.
Okay, and is there any particular file type that you would recommend?
Yes, so for example, what I would recommend is like using context-rich visuals, like think about lifestyle photos, AI-generated product imagery that makes the online shopping experience just more engaging and more trustworthy. So you can think about like 3D renders, but also lifestyle photos, but also using AI to create video based on those quality images.
Got you. Okay, so we're talking about the use of the product in action. So if it's a physical product, someone actually using the product, and in context essentially means that in normal everyday use, so AI starts to understand how the product is used.
Indeed. And also I said before, like, okay, it's not about video, but you can also use AI to make those images as videos. So think about using user-generated content, creating user-generated content with your products with AI.
Okay, and is there an optimum number of images per page that we're talking about here? And are we only talking about publishing on your website?
It really differs. It's very different. For example, what we do for our partners, we have like one plain product photo, always just for the focus on the product. We also have like a lifestyle image. For example, let's say if we take like a washing machine as example, so you have a picture of the washing machine itself, but we also create like a lifestyle photo of the washing machine, let's say in the bathroom, but also in the kitchen, because some people use it also have a washing machine in the kitchen. What's quite important is to give the user an example of how they can use the product. Not only like, okay, this is the product, but in these settings, you can use the product. So they get like an idea of how the product will be within their house or within their household.
I guess the challenge with for many e-commerce stores is they take stock photos from manufacturers and just use the same photos as everyone else. Is it important to have different photos compared with other people out there?
Yes, indeed, because that's the thing, what's now possible. Like now you're seeing IKEA, like big brands doing it, especially like visual commerce. So that's like using high quality, advanced context-rich visuals. You're seeing big companies doing it, but now with AI, you can do it as a smaller company also. For example, let's say if I want to buy like refrigerator, I want to see like, okay, what we then do is like, we put it in different type of kitchens to give it like in a more modern style, more old school style. So you have like as a potential customer, you have a better idea. And from an SEO perspective, what does that mean? It's like, if you can give the user more what they want, it will also have a positive impact on the revenue. We have also done several tests with our own e-commerce partners where we have seen an uplift in different metrics.
Okay, great. And you're saying that it's completely fine to use AI to generate these additional images. So if you're provided with maybe an image from a manufacturer, if you're an e-commerce shop, then you can ask AI to take this image and say, show me this washing machine being used in a bathroom or in a kitchen, or someone putting a great deal of clothes in there, white clothes in there, lots of different scenarios. But you get AI to do that and you don't have to do this yourself at all in any way.
Indeed, yes, that's perfect how you're summarizing it, yes.
Okay, and For the videos that you're talking about there as well, how do you best display them on your website? I mean, for instance, if you asked AI to create maybe a 20-second video on the use of a product, would you then upload that video to YouTube and embed that video on your website? Or is there a better way to publish the video to make sure that AI search engines and other search engines discovered the video?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really depends, but in what we have done now, maybe we can also embed some examples in this podcast. Let's take an example of like a client of us. They sell real estate in Dubai, but they're selling like, new projects. So what does it mean is like, if you have a new housing project, you don't know how it will look like, you only have photos. So what we have done is we have used our AI to make it a video with like image, but also in our AI, like the water is also like moving. So it looks really like you're in the house. And we put it on their website, on their landing page, not on YouTube. And we saw really that the video was picked up in different search engines because we optimized it, like, let's say, with all the elements that are important. So think about all the information regarding the video. And that was the first test. But now what we're going to do is put all the videos also in YouTube to see what the impact is, because like YouTube is a big search engine. So I would always recommend to put it on YouTube.
Okay, great. So that's video as well as the images. But let's just go back to the technical makeup of the images. Now, it used to be that you could have JPEG or PNG, and then WebP came along. Is there any particular file type that you would recommend for these images?
I will still use like the most optimal version of like GP, also PNG, but also WebP. So I will always use the most optimal version and the most modern format. Are just still images.
Okay, and any particular pixel dimension as well?
No.
So I guess you'd probably recommend at least maybe 1,000 pixels or something like that, just to make sure the quality is reasonable, but it's not too big a file size.
Indeed, it really depends on the type of image. Is it like, and also based on the product page, but there's no like a specific pixel or format that you need to use or sizes, because it's more like, it depends on your website. It really depends on your website, but it also depends on the image. Like, is it like an image with like a lot of details, like in a living room, or is it just an image of me holding a product in the bathroom? So it really depends on the amount of details.
Okay, that's fair enough. And what about where these images are used? Are these images primarily viewed on your website? Are they taken by AI search engines and displayed there, and that's where people consume them?
Yes. So what we do, so it's not only SEO, but it's wider. We use those images on the product pages. We use those images in let's say Google Shopping, so in our advertising. We use those images also in our email marketing campaigns. So it's not only beneficial for SEO, but it's beneficial from a business perspective, for a wider marketing strategy.
So how can we automate the creation and publishing of these images? Because it's all very well and good doing this manually if you've got a relatively small website, but if you've got hundreds of thousands of pages, this could be a great opportunity if you can automate it. So how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, so what we do, let me just walk you through the steps that like an SEO can take to implement my tip. So the first step, what I say always, it's not even only for SEO, like a marketer that wants to grow their revenue and improve their engagement metric. So the first step, what I always start is like with audit the current visuals. So map out which image you're using across product pages, categories, and ads. Identify the high traffic, the low conversion pages. Start with some AI variation testing. To make it concrete, you can use like a tool like Midjourney of Delhi or Runaway to generate like multiple variants. So think about like create like a lifestyle image versus a neutral, a light image versus a dark, a modern kitchen versus an old school kitchen, left versus right. So there are like multiple variants that I would recommend to use. Test them first. If that's working, test like one product category of a few products, depends on the size of your business. And then if you're seeing like, hey, it's beneficial, what you can do is like automate this workflow. So with tools like N8N, Make, or Zapier, you can connect it to your product feed. You can connected to automation prompt generation via ChatGPT or Gemini. So it will automatically create the images, and then you can also automatically connect it with your CMS, so it can be uploaded.
Right. Okay. And then how would you connect this to your CMS? Would this be done using an API, or are there connections available directly from tools like Midjourney?
Now, what I will do is I will use like a tool like say N8N.
N810 or Zapier, got you. Right.
Yeah, it's way like a workflow where in the workflow you connect all those different apps based on their API, because all those tools need to talk with each other.
Got you. Okay. So what you do is have a workflow, something like you'll publish a new page on your CMS that'll contain probably one image. And then once that page is published, potentially that will set off a Zap or a workflow that will take that image and automatically generate additional images using AI. And then those images would be automatically published to the same page on your web page a few minutes after publishing the page.
Literally, yes. And that's the workflow. Yeah, that's like one of our workflows as example. And then what's also important is to also ensure that we have like correct alt tags, the compression, so the image sizes, and also structured data for images, of course.
Brilliant. Okay. So what about measuring the impact of this? Does it bring in any more visitors? How do you measure the ROI of doing this?
Yeah, so what we have done, I'm very proud also with the results that we had so far. But how we measure the impact is literally, okay, from the moment that we, for example, if you're implementing it on the ads, what's the CTR on the ads? But also, for example, if we're edited on our organic listings, what is the CTR? Are people clicking more? Time on page and engagement. Do visitors explore deeper? Conversion rate per session and per channel. Do visuals close the deal? Return rate. Are customers getting what they expect? Because, customer satisfaction via reviews or NPS. Do visuals improve trust? Because if I look, for example, from e-commerce perspective, you can also look, okay, what are the return rates? Like if you can give people a more, from my own experience, if I order something that's a plain product, I put it in my living room, I'm like, it doesn't feel nice in my modern living room. But if you know that beforehand, that will help the return rate also. So they're like important KPIs that we can really use to make it concrete, but also the most important, revenue. Are we getting more revenue on those campaigns, but also from an organic perspective, are we seeing more conversions?
So I can see this certainly saves time, it reduces costs. Publishing more content is probably good as long as it's highly relevant. But how do you ensure brand consistency? I mean, first of all, the original providers of the images, do you have to get permission from them to alter the images or use the images in a different type setting, or use AI to actually change those images? And also, how do you ensure brand consistency to ensure that the images actually reflect what you're trying to portray as a brand?
Yeah, so that is the learning part, and that's why it's very important. What I always say, I think that's a very famous line nowadays: shit in and shit out. So if you create like a good example, but also gives the workflow like input from your brand book, it will also very help. So let's say if I'm very clear, like, okay, to my workflow, okay, these are the guidelines that you need to take into account. Based on this, create the output. Maybe the first time it won't be perfect, but then you can customize your prompts and you can give it some feedback. But that is how it needs to be. It's same also with people, no? If you brief somebody not with everything that they need to know, the output won't be as expected. And it's same with this process.
Great. Okay. Well, a really useful set of tasks there, set of procedures for someone to implement to hopefully take more advantage of their image optimization. And Desmond, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Yeah, so key takeaway from the tip that I shared today is that don't underestimate the power of visuals. Like visual commerce for SEO, image SEO is no longer about just compressing files, writing alt text. It's about using AI and automation to deliver scalable, context-rich visuals that improve both the rankings and the conversion. For businesses, this means, you no longer need like studio budgets to compete with big players. You can build real-time testable, automated visual systems that drive growth. That's my key takeaway from Tim.
Desmond Boateng is a digital strategy director over at Digital Base. Find out more at dgtlbase.com. Desmond, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, David.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at seoin2026.com.